In the sun-drenched kingdom of Elveria, there was a princess unlike any other. Her name was Cinderella, and while the palace halls echoed with the whispers of nobles and the rustle of silk, her heart was elsewhere. She found her joy not in opulent balls or gilded carriages, but in the bustling markets and cobbled streets. Among the laughter and struggles of the common folk, she would slip away from her royal duties, her crown replaced by a simple hood to listen to their stories, share their bread, and feel the vibrant pulse of a life. She was born to rule, but never truly know. This wasn't the fairy tale you've heard. This was the story of a princess who yearned for a world beyond the castle walls. It was on one of these escapes that she met him. Aaron, he wasn't a prince or a nobleman. He was a storyteller, a weaver of words who captured the hearts of market-goers with tales of adventure and forgotten magic. His eyes held a depth she'd never seen in the calculated gazes of the court. Cinderella, hidden in the crowd, was captivated. Soon, she began seeking him out, not just for his stories, but for the connection they shared. They'd sit by the river, sharing simple meals and dreams too big for their small world. With Aaron, she wasn't Princess Cinderella. She was just Ella. For the first time, she felt truly seen. And in those stolen moments, a quiet, profound love began to bloom. A love that was as beautiful as it was dangerous. But the world of politics has little room for love. Elveria's prosperity was fragile, balanced on a knife's edge. A neighboring kingdom, Valoria, ruled by the powerful and ambitious King Adrian, was a growing threat. Whispers of war filled the council chambers. To secure peace, a pact was proposed, a marriage alliance. Cinderella, the kingdom's most valuable diplomatic asset, was to be the bride. Her father, the king, presented it not as a choice, but as a duty. The needs of the many, he said, outweighed the desires of the few. Cinderella's heart broke. The choice was between her personal happiness with Aaron and the lives of thousands of her people. With a heavy heart, she accepted her fate, sacrificing her own love on the altar of peace. Her journey to Valoria was a funeral procession for her heart. The grand wedding was a spectacle of power, but for Cinderella, it was a gilded cage locking her away. King Adrian was not a cruel man. He was a ruler, consumed by matters of state. He was polite, distant, and saw her as a treaty sealed in flesh and blood, not a woman with a grieving heart. The sprawling palace was a labyrinth of loneliness. Her days were a blur of empty pleasantries and suffocating etiquette. The silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the lively market she missed so dearly. Desperate for a familiar face, for a piece of the life she'd lost, she did the unthinkable. She began to arrange secret meetings with Aaron, who, unable to bear their separation, had followed her to Valoria, finding work in the city. Their reunions were fraught with risk, whispered conversations in moonlit gardens and hidden alcoves. They were reckless, driven by a love that refused to die. In these stolen moments, they clung to each other, two souls adrift in a world that sought to keep them apart. They found solace in each other's arms, a temporary escape from the cold reality of their lives. But their desperate comfort had consequences. Soon, Cinderella discovered she was with child Aaron's child. The secret, once a source of comfort, now became a terrifying burden. How could she tell her husband, the king? How could she explain this to two kingdoms whose peace rested upon their union? Fear became her constant companion, a shadow that clung to her every step within the cold, unforgiving walls of the Valorian palace. Secrets, however, have a way of coming to light. A suspicious servant, a misplaced letter, the details are lost to history, but the outcome was catastrophic. King Adrian discovered the truth. He learned of the secret meetings, of the love his wife held for another man, and of the child she carried that was not his. In the dark of night, in the solitude of his royal chambers, the king who had everything took his own life. The kingdom awoke not to a new day, but to a new era of chaos. The king's death sent shockwaves through both kingdoms. The fragile peace shattered into a million pieces. Valoria, now leaderless and enraged, saw Cinderella not as a grieving widow but as a treacherous adulteress, the cause of their king's demise. War was no longer a threat, it was an inevitability. The people of Elveria, who once saw her as their beloved princess, now looked upon her with scorn and betrayal. She had saved them from war only to plunge them into a bloodier one. Hiding was not an option. The weight of her actions, the death of her husband, the impending war, it all rested on her shoulders. There was only one path forward, and it was paved with humility and truth. Cinderella, no longer a fairy tale princess, but a fallen queen, stood before the furious crowds of both kingdoms. There was no excuse, no plea for sympathy. She laid her heart bare, admitting her love for Aaron, her secret, and the devastating consequences of her choices. She confessed her part in the tragedy, her voice shaking but resolute. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She knew she hadn't earned it. Instead, she made a promise. She would dedicate the rest of her life not to ruling from a throne, but to serving the people she had wronged. She relinquished her titles, her wealth, her claim to power. Her new purpose would be to heal the wounds she had helped create, to rebuild the trust she had shattered. Years passed. The war was averted not by treaties, but by slow, arduous work. Cinderella, now just Ella, and Aaron, by her side, traveled through the towns and villages of both lands. They didn't lead armies. They built orphanages for the children of conflict. They didn't negotiate with kings. They established food programs for the hungry. They worked with their hands, side by side with the very people their actions had nearly destroyed. Their life was not one of royal comfort, but of purpose. They found their redemption not in a crown or a castle, but in the quiet, daily acts of service. This wasn't a story about finding a prince and living happily ever after. It was a story about making terrible mistakes and spending a lifetime making amends, proving that true royalty lies not in bloodline, but in the unwavering commitment to the people you serve. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more tales that look beyond the fairy tale ending. We all make mistakes, but it's what we do next that truly defines us.